Hello, Rose Buddies. Happy Tarot Tuesday. You see, I've got this lovely setup. I figured out how to make it both not upside down and not backwards. Ooh, upgrade. How is everyone doing? If you're in the States and had the luxury of a holiday on Labor Day, how did you spend it? Did you do something nice for you? Or did you get trapped into thinking you had to be productive doing other stuff? Thanks, Jess. Yeah, we've upgraded a lot for Tarot Tuesday, especially as we go through like card by card for the suit, which we're going to be doing today. We're focusing on the Suit of Swords. I wanted people to be able to see them, but also I'm vain, so I wanted people to be able to see my face. Yeah, we're going through swords today, and I'm wondering, is it just me, or does anyone else have a feeling when I say that we're going through swords? You bought your very first tarot deck, and you can't wait until it arrives. You've been searching for a while. Sarah Grace, congratulations. Do you want to share with us which deck you got, or what the imagery looks like, or what drew you to it? That's very exciting. You wrote double your daily word count yesterday. Well done. When those words are flowing, go for it. Well done, Secretly Grander. Okay, I have a few things to show and tell today. First, I wanted to let you all know that tomorrow at 5 p.m. I'm doing Druid Craft, and I'm making a dried floral arrangement. So I have here, they make kind of like an ASMR rustly noise, but some hydrangea that I dried from Dusty's mom's garden. And I don't know if you can really see in this lighting. Hold on. I'll like hold it really close to the camera and hope it focuses. But like they start out a really bright baby blue, and then they get these like deep purple tones, and it like almost turns teal. They're really cool. I'm going to be making an arrangement that takes like each of these little, not these whole chunks, but each of these little tiny stems and takes them apart and makes like this really dense, compact, ruffly arrangement with these hydrangea and also some yarrow that I dried from her garden. I'm really excited about that, so I kind of wanted to show off these flowies. Oh, the Prisma Visions Tarot is the one you got. Yeah. So did you see, I found it through a Kickstarter, but did you see, is it Cosmic Visions Oracle deck? I don't usually go for Oracle decks, but I've backed that one. Right, Jess in the chat mentioned that they've been working more with Oracle decks than tarot decks. If you're not familiar with the difference, Oracle decks are much more freeform, or they can be much more freeform. It could be whatever the artist kind of wants to pull from for symbols. So it could be a deck of animals, and there's cards that are like bear, rabbit, and you interpret the meanings based off of what those animals mean to you. Or it might be cards that are like healing, joy, betrayal. I don't usually see Oracle decks that have an interpretation book with them. So I find that those are, if you're naturally very comfortable with just going off your intuition, those are really, really great to work with. Oh, hey, Brittany. Thanks for joining. Hey, Ren. Nice to have the gang all here. Oracle decks. So as those of you who've been following Tarot Tuesday know, we are doing the Intuitive Tarot book, because I don't lean naturally to intuiting meaning from my cards. I'm very much, or I have historically been very much like, oh, I need to go back to the little white book and read what the meaning is, and am I interpreting it right? So Oracle decks have never really been for me, because I'm not comfortable. I don't feel like I'm comfortable yet. I feel like going through this book has been really changing how I feel, so I'd be interested in exploring a typical Oracle deck again. But what drew me to Cosmic Visions Oracle deck, if I'm saying it right, if that's the name of it, is that it's very much based off of tarot, but they add another suit and they like change some of the names of things and explore them slightly differently. And everything's sort of about your path after death, to sort of going through and then being reincarnated in the material world again. So that it kind of combines an oracle and tarot deck really intrigued me. So I sprung for that one. Let's see. I was looking at the oracle deck, but after some research, I wanted to start with something with a little more structure, I guess, if that makes sense. I think that totally makes sense. And the Prisma Visions tarot deck has very much the same gorgeous art style. The suits, when you put all the cards down, make this gorgeous like panoramic scene. They flow into one another. I don't know how much of a story they tell, but they definitely have like a visual connection. Can you all hear the leaf blower across the street? I'm sorry. I'm not sorry because I can't control it, but I don't know what to do about it. But they just started leaf blowing right before I started. And my stress was like, but I can't control it. So I'm trying to handle it with grace. Anyway, Intuitive Tarot, one of the exercises is that you lay out all of your cards for each suit, from the ace to the king, and you see whether it tells a connected story. So I feel like that'd be really fun to do with the Prisma Visions deck. Secretly, Grander, my AC unit is a bit loud, so I can barely hear anything. Okay, that makes me feel slightly better. Also knowing that you're nice and cool. You can't hear the leaf blower at all. Dusty can, but Dusty's here. I have a fluffy puppy foot warmer. Oh. Oh, nice. I'm half tempted to buy a second deck to frame because it's beautiful. The big suit pictures are so intriguing, and one of the things that drew me to it, too. Yeah, that's very unique to that deck. Brittany, is it really snowing where you are? That's wild to me. In September, early September, you're getting snow. That's so bizarre. Is that typical where you are? We had 100 degrees yesterday, but now snow today. What? That makes no sense. What's the temperature? I don't understand that. It's Colorado? That's just what it is like? Yeah, my girlfriend is in Colorado and it's snowing. 100 degrees to 30 degrees? Okay, you know what? That makes me a little less scared of swords, because you know what? Our reality is the most terrifying. Further convinced Colorado isn't a real place. Oh, wow. Goodness. Okay. Well, the other thing I laid out here to show everybody was that I have been edging my tarot decks. I have these pastel highlighters that I got. A pastel green and pastel purple are what I've used so far. And it's a super calming activity, bonding activity with your tarot deck if it has blank or white edges. But you can see this had white edges, or not even white, just like cardstock edges. And I colored them a pastel purple. And this is my spooky Halloween deck. Lots of pumpkins and bats and ghosts, oh my. So that's one of the decks I've edged. And then I have this vintage Aquarian tarot deck. And it has these really beautiful blue backs. And we've edged it with a pastel kind of sea foamy green. So that was really fun. And I feel like you kind of go through and you look at the cards as you go over the edges. And it really does help you kind of bond and get to know your deck. I feel more connected to these. Like, I'm more likely to use them once I'm done going through Intuitive Tarot with my Forager's Daughter deck. I'm planning to buy the Marigold deck with my next paycheck, so it'll be perfectly themed. Ooh, that is a gorgeous one. Oh, Brittany, you like the artwork? It's very, what's the word I'm looking for? Art Deco. Okay. put these away. But shall we talk about some swords? Swords. I admit, I asked a question at the beginning of this, and then I sort of, kept talking to fill the silence. So I didn't actually give anyone a chance to answer. But how do people feel about the swords in your tarot deck? The Minor Arcana Suit of Swords. Are you scared of them like I am? I feel like between the swords and also the Tower in the Major Arcana, there are people who love those suits or don't love those suits. But everyone seems to have strong opinions. Oh, hey, Hannah, thanks for joining. Nice to have you here. Oh, yeah, folks in the chat who weren't here for the pre-chat, I mentioned, but if you have a tarot deck, it could be digital or your favorite physical tarot deck or one you haven't gotten to know that well and you want to, bring it out. Sort out all the swords cards, and as I'm going through mine, tell me about yours, and we can kind of compare imagery and meaning and symbolism. You love stabby things? Maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm just a baby scared of swords. I purposefully wore this new necklace I got. Hold on, I want to show it off. It's a bumblebee jasper. Will it focus? There we go. That is wire wrapped. And bumblebee jasper is supposed to help you deal with change. So it's supposed to help me deal with all these sword cards I have to look at. If you like the wire wrap, I feel like I want to give a shout out to the maker. I like supporting small creators. On Twitter, she is Kyla, KYLA_kitten. I think she's having a shop update tomorrow. So people should check her out. My first sword was an Ace of Swords reverse, so big fan of swords over here. Alright, well, everyone says you're a baby tarot reader, still learning. Let's learn together then. Alright. Oh, actually, no, what am I doing? Sorry, I paused because I was like, my brain was like, no, stop. This isn't the order of things that you do. Let's just talk about the suit of swords in general. So the suit of swords is associated with air, and it is associated with thought and actions. So we've talked about cups, which are very much emotions and relationships, pentacles that are very much about the material world and how you shape it. And this has to do with the intellect, your thoughts and your attitudes. So I mentioned the element associated with swords is air. So swords, more than perhaps any other suit, is about balance. I personally think all of the suits have messages of balance in them, but swords are, if you pardon the pun, double-edged. They kind of warn about that balance between intellect and power, and there's that saying that like absolute power corrupts absolutely. The swords kind of warn against that message. And like air, it has that sort of, what am I trying to say? Words are hard today, everybody. Also, I feel like I'm hearing an echo. Hey, Dusty, if you're listening and your sound is really loud, can you turn it down a little bit? Yeah, I'm definitely hearing my voice through the ceiling, and it's making me feel weird. Let's see. Hannah says, as a Gemini, I feel my swords cards do right by me. I feel like my spreads are stronger than when I have swords dominating. Thank you, Dusty. Oh, so that's interesting that you really embrace swords. You have sort of the opposite reaction as I do. Swords are very much like air. Air has this duality to it. It's like constantly two things. It's intangible. You can't see it, but it's always there and it's always moving. It can be like really mighty. Like imagine like a tornado as the extreme, or just a gust of powerful wind. But it can also be like really refreshing and crisp, and kind of and cooling. So there is this duality inherent in all of the swords cards. In exercise we did with the other two suits, which we should do today with swords, is to talk about what is a swords person. Oh, Stabby. Oh, how appropriate. Stabby Rogue Games. Thank you for following today on our Stabby Tarot Tuesday. So how would you describe a person who emanates like the swords archetype? So as a reminder, and as folks catch up and type, the cups we thought was someone who has a really romanticized view of life. They might lead with their intuition. On the flip side, because we can have negative attributes as well, they might be overly emotional. The Pentacles person we thought was like practical. But on the flip side, they might be greedy or stingy even, or too obsessed with professional success. Let's see. Brittany has chimed in saying someone is freedom, powerful, sharp, but honest. Yeah, I feel like I described Pentacles people a lot as being no nonsense. But I feel like it's no nonsense, but gentle when it calls for someone to be gentle. Whereas I feel like Swords is someone who's no nonsense and like honest with you, maybe almost to a fault. Like they're not going to try to protect your feelings. That doesn't occur to them. Hey, Katerina. Intellectual or meta, but also dominant and demanding. Yeah, I definitely feel like Swords people are really powerful. They have a tendency to be leaders, I think. It's like prizing honesty and accuracy above all else. Sahana Rar, that is totally spot on, I think. Hey, Jules. Welcome back. I think Swords people are good at seeing various sides of things by sort of thinking through them. That is a good, another way to look at that sort of like double-edged thing. They can see both sides, or maybe there's more than two sides to look at. Zero filter, says Britt. High expectations for sure, says Hannah. I wrote down so many words for the suit of Swords. For me, it's like people who go after things at all costs. I also like associate a swiftness with the Swords people. They kind of like immediately hone in on what they should do and just go for it. But let's see. I wrote down action, change, force, ambition, courage. They're very logical, and I feel like they're also good communicators. Decisive. Thank you for summarizing all those many words I said into one perfect word, Hannah. Are they the Gryffindor of the suits? Oh, interesting. I wonder. Hold on. I'm thinking about it. And I'm thinking like Hufflepuff, I definitely think are cups. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know if there's a 1-to-1 for the Harry Potter houses and the suits. It sounds more Slytherin, says Right Jess. Yeah. I always felt like Wands was Gryffindor. Swords more Ravenclaw. Everyone's like, yeah, Hufflepuff are cups, but who knows the other ones? Stabby Rogue Games asks, how do you know what kind of person you are? How many types are there? I assume Swords is one of these types. This is where I admit I know nothing of the subject matter. Well, we are going through the 4 different minor arcana suits. And there are probably people who really feel drawn to one particular suit. But I think people are complex, and there are probably elements of every suit, or multiple suits, that you can really identify with. We're not necessarily defining, like, what a type of person is, but pretending that the sword suit was a person, and in that case describing who they are to kind of describe the suit in another way. Think about it in a different way. I love the conversation that is happening. The suits of swords are always the scariest image-wise in the Rider-Waite. Katerina, that is maybe why I'm scared of suits. Because there's lots of, like, people being stabbed and stuff. And that's intimidating to me. I find being stabbed intimidating. Let's see. I have a list of negative words as well. So I wrote kind of not necessarily direct opposites, but this is the other side of the spectrum for suits. Conflict, oppression, anger and guilt, lack of compassion, being ruthless or domineering, confrontational or rigid. I feel like rigid because a swords person can really hone in on what they think the right thing is. Like, they analyze very quickly. And because they feel like, well, I've thought about this logically and intellectually, my way has to be the right way. But I also feel like the sword suits warn against these negative attributes. Sociopathic pursuit of truth / perfection, says Dusty. Hannah says, I feel like the depicted violence reinforces the metaphor. It is clear, unlike interpretation-dependent suits like pentacles. Swords sound like my sisters. Yeah, Dusty, Hannah's a swords person. You be careful there with those words. So what happens when you have a spread and lots of swords are showing up? What does that mean? That means, so if I will remind for folks who haven't seen the other videos. Oh, dice rolling mama. Thank you for following. For cups, that was dealing with emotional issues, interpersonal relationship issues, or conflicts rather. Pentacles were dealing with questions about the material world. Swords is about seeking solutions to mental struggles. So this might be conflicts, it might be arguments, or maybe you have to make a really difficult decision. That's when swords come into play. In response to what happens when you have a suit with lots of swords, Dungeon Mom Brittany says, you better be in for some brutal honesty. That's for sure. Oh, and there was one thing that was in Intuitive Tarot that I wrote down because I really liked it, and it helped me bring down that wall between me and swords just a little bit, which is, swords are a warning to be more cautious of what is occurring around you. That takes me from feeling like swords are there to attack me which is honestly what it feels like. They're there to call me out. And Brittany, oh my gosh, thank you so much for gifting subs to folks. For folks who just got subs, thank you to Brittany, and also enjoy your bat emotes that you now have access to. And if you want to go back and watch the VODs, you can now do so without commercials if I have my settings correct. I would love for someone to confirm that for me. But yay! Thank you. Smashing that September sub goal, too. There are 3 cards from my Arthurian Tarot set I would get showing up all the time, and one of them was Swords 9 with heads on pikes. Ooh, scary! Yikes, indeed. Oh, you were so close, I just had to. Thank you, Brittany. That's very, very sweet of you. All right. Are folks feeling ready to get stabby up in here? We are going to go through my suit of swords from Forger's Daughter Tarot, card by card. If you have your tarot deck with you, I really recommend going through at the same time and sharing with chat what imagery you see, and what those cards mean to you. Yeah, let's get sharp. Okay. First, it is... Oh, let me hold them up first. Me? Okay. Is the Ace of Swords, What jumps out at me immediately is that there is this wreath, and this sword has broken it. It's honestly like just broken it. There's little shards that are like exploding from this broken circle. Oh, Tarot of the Divine. I love that one, Jules Verne. I'm honestly thinking of picking it up. Latia has been using it, and every time she posts pictures, I just want it more. It's such a beautiful deck, and I really love the symbolism in it. So Ace of Swords. So it's breaking this wreath, which is a circle. So for me, there's sort of like, it's, you're breaking out of like an old way of thinking, or you're breaking out into a new way of thinking. You're not kind of going around in this circle over and over again. That's what this card says to me. Let's see. I wrote down breakthrough, like literally, and new way of thinking. Those are the key words that I wrote. Hannah says starting anew. Yeah. Because swords deal so much with the intellect and the mind and thinking and information, I associate it very much with like looking at something with a different perspective, thinking about something in a different way. This card seems like disruption and breaking this cycle. Yeah, that's totally how I feel too, Stabby. I have a very, very blunt Ace of Swords. There's just a sword being firmly grasped by a hand coming from the left. It just feels like this card is going to tell me things that I might not be ready to handle. Also, it is parting a veil-like substance. Oh, interesting. So it's like breaking through this veil. Mine has a ghost overlooking a pantheon. Oh, interesting. What do you take from that imagery, Katerina? I have the Mystic Mondays digital deck, so upright it's clearly through the fog, and reversed it's as if the sword is stuck in the fog. Oh. Oh, okay. So the sword is like slashing through some fog. Mine has a sword laying almost gently across some flowers. Oh, that's very sweet. It's like, I'm just a cute sword on some flowers. I'm just a good sword. Be my friend. Oh, Brittany, we can only hope. I've got a nice, cooling green mango tea. Iced. Really yummy. It's like overlooking and protecting what's there, says Katerina. Ooh, Brock set. Arthurian Tarot is my only set at the moment, and mine is a sword emerging from a fire. That's really interesting, because we had an argument when we were talking about, an argument is probably too strong a word, but we were talking about whether swords are associated with fire or air. Traditionally it's air, but I always thought they were fire for like a really long time. And wands are associated with fire, but I thought they were associated with air. So it's just really interesting that there's strong fire imagery on your ace, which is very much, the aces are very much like the essence of that tarot suit. Leon says, I'm using a deck illustrated by Yoshitaka Amano. My ace sword has a blood red blade, but it's surrounded by all kinds of flowers and celestial bodies. Cool. I've only had the Rider Waite, but I've had difficulty with the cards, so I'm hesitant to go deeper with them. I mean, there are a lot of resources. If you're not feeling it, I'm not going to force you to use that tarot deck. But if you want to give it a go, I recommend a book called 78 Degrees of Wisdom, which really goes into more depth about Rider-Waite imagery, each of those cards, and kind of gives little stories or anecdotes to help you interpret those symbols and remember them. I'm using a deck that is very far from Rider-Waite imagery, so I've kind of set that book on my shelf. But there are a lot of decks that follow the Rider-Waite tradition, so if you have one of those decks, that book can be very useful. Swords is an air suit, Stabby. Pentacles represents earth. Okay. Next, we have the Two of Swords. Mine has two swords that are crossing and a bat who's doing some echolocation screechies. And there's two moths kind of basking in this moonlight that's coming down. So, to me, this Two of Swords, there's a few symbols that jump out at me. This bat has to make a decision between which of these moths it's going to pursue for food. I also imagine it needs to make this decision pretty swiftly because at some point it's not going to be able to make a decision. Both the moths will fly away. So to me, there's a swiftness in this decision making. But also, they're choosing an animal that that can't see in like the traditional way. It relies mostly on sound, and so to me, that speaks to using like your instinct, your intuition, to make that decision and make it swiftly. Oh, hey, Friday! Thanks for joining. The bat's blind, too, because the light... Oh, you're right. As if you don't have all of the info. I appreciate folks letting me know what stands out to them. My Two of Swords are crossed but bent in a C-hook shape. That's, like, really interesting that they chose that particular shape of sword. I wonder if it's for, like, visual intrigue or it's, like, those swords, like, really lock together. Let's see. My Two of Cups is the story of Sita, which I don't know yet, but she looks like she's really taking a moment to make a decision, even if it has to be made quickly. She's really concentrating. Secretly Grander, who's also using Mystic Monday, says, either upright or reverse, it's stuck in a place, and depending on your action, things could go right or wrong. Broxette says, mine has a path going into a horizon line with mountains in the distance, forest on either side of the path, and one sword also on each side. Also tucked small onto the left is a snake. Ooh, I wonder if that is speaking to making decisions swiftly and like there being either, like Secretly Grander said, things can go really right or really wrong. Mine is a long stem with two roses coming off of it at about halfway up the stem. The thorns are the only part that aren't colored in, so they stand out but not in an intimidating way. That is also interesting. As a floral enthusiast, I feel like there's also a decision there of like, if you want one flower to be really big and beautiful, you pinch off the rest. And I wonder if it's like you're making a decision, which of these flowers are you going to snip and prune? My Two of Arrows is Injustice, a woman blindfolded beneath scales containing gold and a feather. I gotta say, Dusty, that Wildwood Tarot really ventures from like the traditional tarot meanings. I feel like because long story short, Twitch had like this weird technical thing and I had to watch my own VOD and listen to myself talk, which I don't know if folks live that life where you have to like edit podcasts of your own voice and you're like, but I was looking at chat and I saw you talking about Wildwood cards, and I don't remember now, but I remember thinking at the time, oh, that's like actually this card in my deck. I feel like it kind of moves some meanings around. It can wander a long way from Rider-Waite, says Dusty, but I love how each suit follows a very natural progression. Very cool. Okay, here is one of those traditionally terrifying cards to me. It is the Three of Swords. This is not the first time we've talked about this scary, scary card on Tarot Tuesday. Okay. Mine has a red bird, a cardinal. It has flown up and someone has just stabbed it 3 times in the back. And there's also some branches behind it, but the branches have a little bit of growth on them. These are beautifully drawn. I adore this artwork, Stabby. So much regarding listening back to my own voice. It's hard. Yeah, my Three of Swords has a red heart that is being pierced by three swords. That is the a very traditional Three of Swords, that red heart being stabbed. I feel like there are a lot of decks that can really go far away from what Rider Waite is in imagery. But a lot of decks, the Three of Swords is that heart being stabbed. So classic. The Modern Witch Tarot has the traditional heart being stabbed, but it has black stuff oozing out, and it makes me think like, okay, this sucks, but you're getting the bad stuff out, and it had to happen. Oh, that's a very hopeful interpretation of the card. I feel like my deck also has a relatively hopeful interpretation. So, words I associate with this card are definitely like pain and betrayal, and an unexpected betrayal. This bird, when is a bird expecting to be stabbed? It would not have gone along with its movements if it had thought this was coming. But there's new growth on the branches, which tells me that there is something that comes after this. Life goes on. Things change. But there is an after and healing. So this heart tried to soar away and was denied. Freaking brutal. Yeah, stabby. My signal's crap keeps freezing, love y'all. Oh, okay, well, by Friday. I have a stone bridge collapsing, says Brockset, over a steep cliff. If positively interpreting this card, I see it as no turning back. Oh, wow. Yeah. I mean, yeah, you can only move forward. That is a very powerful message to receive from the card. Katarina says, mine has a girl turning away from an older woman, putting a hand on a shoulder with a pleading look. Oh, I wonder if that's a story of betrayal. Three of arrows, jealousy. Pierce a heart. 3 arrows pierce a heart-shaped wooden target on a tree, which is on fire. Again, with these swords associated with fire imagery rather than air imagery. Very interesting. I'm also remembering something I really love that Intuitive Tarot does is that it gives you like little blurbs about each of the traditional card meanings, but it also asks you a question for each. So because these swords are so scary for me, I definitely want to do the questions too. Okay. So Ace of Swords was asking, how can you expand your mind and perspective? Two of Swords was saying, how can you open your eyes to the possibilities? And now Three of Swords that we're on is asking, how can you see the pain and challenges as a learning opportunity and rise stronger than ever? Oh, interesting. In the Golden Dawn deck, there are 3 hands holding swords, but only one is shattering something. What do you take from that, Hannah? Dice Rolling Mama says, hard lessons that need to be learned. Yeah, the sword is all about that. Okay. Moving on. We have the 4 of Swords. Mine has a toad who is hibernating. There are like 4 swords kind of encircling him, but he's actually underground, underneath a tree, and it is winter. I actually really like this card, even though it's a sword, and I had said that all swords scare me. The 4 of Swords to me is about reminding you to rest, or knowing that it's time to rest, and taking time for self-care. That's what my 4 of Swords says. Oh, Grinning Greg says, hey all, I don't know. If you see the swords as going between feathers and the one behind as a close call, this cardinal can be effectively uncanny dodging, i.e. a close call. I don't know with that look on the cardinal's face. Let's see, did I write anything out? No, hibernation, rest, self-care is what I wrote. Dusty says I have rest as well as his Wildwood keyword. I really struggle with the Rider-Waite Four of Swords image because the person looks dead. Oh my goodness. I'm kind of really curious now to look that up. Brock says, mine has a sword upon an altar with a holy light shining down upon it. So yes, a more hopeful sword card. Mine is a woman holding a sword in front of her pointed down, with her hair up and wavy, and there are 3 other swords in her hair. She's very stoic, strong, and seems sure of herself. There's peace to her as well, acceptance. Restful, upright, and burnout reversed. Yeah, I guess, so you can think of the reverse as kind of the flip end of, like, knowing that it's time to self-care and rest. If you don't know it's time to do that, then you're just going to burn out. Oh, Jess, thank you for the hydrate reminder. The 4th sword cards reveals the full image from the 3rd sword card. The imagery is vivid AF. 2 rising fists, lotus in the center of the eye, pierced by 4 swords. Whoa. That's extremely vivid. What's the question we ask? The 4 of Swords asks, how can you create time and space to rest and reevaluate your priorities? I like these questions. I feel like they're all good questions. And like I'd said kind of in the beginning when we were discussing this Suit of Swords, they're warnings to kind of be aware of your circumstances and what's around you. Okay. Oh, let me hold this up. This is my 5 of Swords. It has what looks like apples. They're on a branch, but the skin is kind of peeling away, so they might be rotting apples. They're all stabbed with swords, 5 of them, and there are these hornets that are hungrily eating them. So I didn't know what this meant to me, aside from, like, this seems bad. Hornets eating stabby apples. This can't be a happy card. And I looked it up in my little white book, which is not little nor white, but the Forager Daughters Tarot Handbook. And she had an anecdote about growing up at a house that had an apple tree. And while a lot of people really love apples, she actually doesn't like apples because it reminds her of the apples falling on the ground and rotting and hornets being, like, really aggressive. Like, this is our last chance to get sweet, yummy apples. No other bugs better get in our way. And you also had to be careful whenever you were, like, touching or picking up an apple because it could have a hornet who'd burrowed into it and then it'd be all up in your business. And so bringing this background to the meaning of the card, to her it was very much about, like, picking your battles too, because it's like, do I want this apple? Am I willing to risk getting stung by a hornet for it? It feels like the pain feeding new growth, conflict and chaos, constant vigilance. This feels like conflict and standing up for yourself, says Brittany about her card. Don't get yourself backed into a corner. Yeah, I wrote hostility, loss, choose your battles. But choose your battles seems the strongest to me based on that artist's anecdote about why she chose this imagery in particular. Broxette says, mine is a war town land with a burning house and a smashed sword in the foreground. Upright, it's putting people below you priority-wise. Reversed, it's joining with others. Interesting, secretly grander. Oh, war-torn land, says Broxette. Really? Hannah, the Rider-Waite deck has a weird card for this one. How would you describe it? Katarina says, mine has an image of 2 women looking concerned at the stack of swords in the corner of the card. That's a mood. Bro looks like he is turning his back on his friends. That really is sort of, kind of goes with what Secretly Grander said about putting yourself priority-wise. He's taking all the swords and leaving them to weep at the sea. Oh, I'm remembering this because I have a deck that uses a lot of Rider-Waite imagery. And so I'm now remembering this card when you talk about, like, he's taken all the swords. Greedy. Hey, A2SC. Thanks for tuning in for a little bit. I guess that really is about prioritizing yourself when you're looking at the Rider-Waite interpretation. That seems like prioritizing yourself, but kind of in, like, I don't know why you need all those swords. That seems like kind of a jerk thing to do. I like prioritizing yourself in terms of, like, picking your battles, and do you have the energy and spoons to do this, or would you rather save them for something else? Have you ever seen hornets around candy apples? Your image doesn't really show it, but that's where my mind goes when I see apples on sticks with hornets. It's a blessing that you have to work at to keep for yourself. I'm gonna remember that, honestly, that Grinning Greg. And that's gonna help me remember this card. It's selfish, though, at the expense of others. It definitely feels like that in the Rider-Waite one. Sahana Rar says, the hornet imagery actually reminds me of, like, taking opportunities before they disappear, aka rot. That's also a nice interpretation of it. Although these hornets scare me. I feel like, depending on the context of the reading, I might read it that way, Sahana. Because I'm trying to be a little bit more intuitive with the imagery of my deck, rather than feeling like, well, this is what the book says, so that's what it means. And that's really the lesson of Intuitive Tarot. For the Five of Swords, it says, how can you collaborate instead of compete? And it says the traditional meaning of Five of Swords, since this one was so weird for a lot of us. A sense of defeat and loss after a conflict. Choosing your battles wisely will lead to more peace than engaging in every disagreement. Alright, are you ready for Six of Swords? Here is my Six of Swords. It has a bunch of forget-me-nots all over the place. And a cicada? A locust? I don't know. Some sort of bug, but it's crawling out of an old shell and coming out anew. So to me, immediately I was like, transformation or transition. But the forget-me-nots, I mean, it kind of is like, it reminds me a little bit of the death card. Like, transition is inevitable. Although, I suppose that's also a Wheel of Fortune thing. I associate death very much with change. But this is more of a transition, a rite of passage, and moving forward, but also remembering where you came from. The forget-me-nots come into that for me. Remembering where you came from so you can remember those lessons and also see the progress that you've made. It's a cicada. Thank you. My Six of Swords for Mystic Monday deck is weird. It's 6 swords points up and 3 rows with 4 waves in an upward motion. Interesting. Your Golden Dawn deck might be an entirely new schema. That's an interesting, a good realization to have. A new journey or chapter with change, says Brockset. Secretly Grander says, upright, it's taking a few steps forward and reversed. It's 2 steps back. Stop That Old Woman says, Rider-Waite, the individuals in the canoe are leaning forward as if trying to appear small. It seems like they're in pain or burdened. Oh, interesting. Jules Verne says, I love my Six of Swords. It's the story of Danae and Perseus from Greek mythology. After being imprisoned by her father, Danae and her young son Perseus escape. Perseus will eventually grow to defeat the Gorgon Medusa. No, but Medusa deserves better. My Six of Swords has a woman kind of canoeing away from the distant city in the background. So that is sort of like moving forward. Did I write anything else down? Transition. I wrote shedding, so like leaving stuff behind. Personal growth, I wrote for mine. Six of Swords here asks, what baggage can you release in order to move forward? Hey, Chrysagon! We're talking about swords today. Shall we talk about the Seven of Swords? Mine has a tricksy raccoon eyeing some swords, or hiding behind some swords, eyeing another sword that is like crushing some mushrooms. So to me, this card is all about trickery. The artist has chosen a little bandit of a trash panda, and mushrooms, which are a very tricksy growth, because mushrooms have a lot of lookalikes. Some mushrooms are incredibly toxic, so you have to be really careful at discerning when you're foraging those. And raccoons are just the trixiest. Pastel! Thank you for the raid! This is the rogue card, says Jules Verne. We are talking about swords today. For the lovely folks rating, if you're into tarot, come hang out. If you have a tarot deck, go grab it real quick and sort the swords out and go through your cards with us. Secretly Grander says upright. It's pretty literally hiding things behind your back. And reversed, it's being like, hey, look at the sweet sword I found. Oh, yay, a pastel raid. Let's see. What does everyone else have for your Seven of Swords? Dungeon Mon. I have a nude woman with her back to the viewer, a sword in her hand behind her back, surrounded by 6 other swords, some lying down. It seems like there was a battle here, and it was won through trickery. There's also a crescent moon. Ooh. Moon imagery I always find interesting because the moon is a false light. It looks like it's glowing, but really it's just reflecting light from somebody else. So I do associate the moon as a symbol with trickery and falsehoods. Broxet says, mine has a sword stabbed into a piece of wood flowing down a river, and my book refers to self-deceit or self-doubt. What reservations you have. You were the trickster all along. Shadow Beast Reaper, thank you for following. Rider Wait, he's creeping from a festival holding the swords and looking back as if fearing being caught. Homie's in over his head. But what if it were a raccoon stealing all the swords? That would be cute. Mine is the story of Coyote from Salish legend. I'm not familiar with the story yet, but I definitely see coyotes for this card. Jess has a snake with its back half around a sword, almost like it's holding the sword in the front and almost presenting a bouquet of flowers. Oh. It's like, here's some flowers, but then maybe the snake is going to stab you? Cat Vincent, the moon is a complex, I was going to say creature, but she's not a creature, is she? She does represent feminine energy traditionally as well. There are a lot of meanings tied to the moon. Hannah says, y'all are going to make me buy more decks. That's how I feel every Tarot Tuesday. All right. Here is the 8 of Swords. Mine has a little rabbit. It is surrounded by a cage of 8 swords, and there are some weird snake-like things on the ground. I say snake-like because they don't have eyes, and all the other images of the animals they're not in that style. So to me, these are fake snakes, but the rabbit thinks they're real. Yes, get that bun out of there. Oh, Cat Vincent, thank you for following. 8 of Arrows for Dusty is struggle. Yeah. I mean, I could see that for this one too. For me, I instantly thought trapped. But especially after reading the little white book and reading about the symbols that the artist chose, this rabbit is almost sort of trapped by itself. It doesn't realize that it is small and nimble enough to get through these swords just fine. And it doesn't realize that these little images are these little curves on the ground aren't actually snakes. They're just little curvy lines. So I wrote trapped, I wrote illusion, and I wrote hesitation. Yes, it is very much about sort of like you're trapped and it's your own fault for feeling that way. Hannah says, this is one of my least favorite cards because it's about limits I impose on myself. Her ability to break her restraints are right there, but she can't see her options. Eight of Swords is a woman in orange leotard, arms raised, palms up, with 8 swords surrounding her and a blackout bar on her eyes. It feels like a blind choice and having a lot of choices, but not sure what to choose. Sahana Rar says, totally, it's like your own fear holding you hostage. Yes. It's one of those cards where things are scary, but if you put forth some effort, you can turn things around. Yes, and that's actually important. Every card we're talking about here are swords, so they're part of the minor arcana. And what's important about the minor arcana is that those are things that are current and they're temporary. It's presenting to you sort of the omens of the present, like what your current energies are, your current situation at the moment of that reading. But you're very much empowered to change your circumstances yourself, do things differently, interact with the world differently, and kind of change the outcome. Oh, Grinning Greg says, see, being the optimist, I see the rabbit hiding among the swords for protection, like hiding in briars. That is a sweet way to look at the imagery. Mine has a sword stuck in a marsh with a storm headed its way. So restricted, also knowing when to ask for help. Yeah, sometimes those limits are that you can't ask for help, but you can. Jess says, I'm definitely getting that same sense from mine. It's some flowers inside a sort of glass case with a few more flowers, the same kind, outside the glass case, and sort of leaning over it like they're looking at the flowers inside. Let's see, what is the question? I don't think I read the question for the 7 of Swords. So, 7 of Swords, that was our Trixie card. It says, where do you need to be more honest and authentic in your life? Are you the raccoon? You might be the raccoon. Ask yourself if you are. And if you want to change your circumstances. 8 of Swords is asking, how can you reclaim your power and set yourself free? So, it's like a card that can have like a visceral reaction when you draw it, but when you ask a question like that, really it's kind of an empowering card. Hannah, oh my god, I'm the raccoon, mind blown. Yes. That question makes me totally feel differently about this card. It really means it's within my power to change things. If I wasn't in control of it, then there would be nothing that I could do. But this card specifically is like, hey, you can fix this. Swords, they give you harsh lessons. Okay, you guys ever get yourself a glass of something like iced tea or something and then totally forget you're not drinking water, and then you have a moment where you're drinking it and you're like, oh, that's not water that I just put in my mouth. That was really scary. I mean, all things relative, not that scary, but it just happened to me. Finding out that you are a raccoon, yes, that makes sense. Swords are your BFF cards, the truth you need. Could those snakes be trails left in the dirt by the sword tips? Oh, they do? Oh! They do all connect to a sword. So actually, yeah, I think you're right. They're trails left in the cards by the sword. Secretly Grander says, one of my roommates is the epitome of the sword suit because she will give it to me straight. Oh gosh, Stabby! I mixed up Pepsi and milk once. It was upsetting. That is very upsetting. Alright, let's move on to 9. Alright, mine has poppies, some swords looking extremely sharp, and a terrifying centipede. It's huge. It's behind the sword, so this centipede's like as big as 2 swords. Um, because of the poppy imagery, which reminds me of like Wizard of Oz, this makes me think of sleep, which makes me think of dreams, or rather, in the context of this card, nightmares. It's your worst fears coming true, but it's kind of like, are your worst fears really coming true, or are you just kind of dreaming this? Is this your anxiety? The poppies cast this like whole fog of like what is real or not real. My Nine of Swords is a naked woman with orange-red hair, sitting with knees up, arms curled protectively around her knees, and 9 swords pointing down at her head. Oh, I remember you posting this card in the Discord, and it is a very evocative imagery. This card is kind of yikes for me, and the associated story for my deck is Oedipus, which is a yikes story. Oh my gosh! Resonim! My favorite board game company is rating us. And they subbed. Oh, yeah! Thank you! Just so many thank yous. Oh, that's very sweet. Hello, friends! Hello, new friends! We are going through tarot cards. We're learning about the Minor Arcana suit of swords. If you are interested in tarot, every Tuesday at 5 p.m. Pacific time, we go through another lesson from Intuitive Tarot, and I talk about what I've learned, and folks bring their own tarot decks, and we kind of talk about it in chat, too. Oh, thank you, everybody who's following. Y'all are so sweet. Yay! Oh, I keep getting brings on my computer over there. Thank you for the follows. Let's see. Brock Set says, yeah, nightmares are right. This is one of my cards with the most haunting imagery with those heads on pikes. Suffering, fear, cruelty. Oh, sounds like a gruesome, gruesome card for you. Hannah says, I feel like this reminds me of Damocles with the swords dangling above his head. The weight of your decision is always right there. Oof. Let me see if I wrote anything else down for my 9. I wrote nightmares, anxiety, and depression. And it's sort of like not knowing what's real even. Like when you have extreme anxiety or depression, sometimes you kind of question yourself and you feel like, is it reasonable that I'm being anxious or sad or reacting in this way? Or is it quote unquote just my anxiety or just my depression? It's kind of, it could almost be self-imposed fear with this card, which again kind of tells me that you are in control. But gosh, what a scary card to get. Especially that head on pikes version. Let's see what question this asks. 9 of Swords. Who can you reach out to for help in seeing things differently and finding a solution? Oh. What an interesting question to ask. It's asking you to go reach out to a friend, which I think is just like really good advice if you're feeling like anxious or depressed or just really stressed out and worried. Asking someone else for their perspective, they can kind of put things into the bigger picture for you, or be like, well, you know what, from the outside, I know from the inside this feels blah blah blah, but from the outside it seems pretty straightforward and blah 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 blah. What a gorgeous deck. Thank you, Metamommy. This is the Forager's Daughter deck. It is all botanical imagery, animals, some things like the moon, celestial bodies, stones, but it's all just really, really stunning. This is why we need tarot buddies. This is Hannah. Yeah, I want to read the whole thing for 9 of Swords. Nine of Swords. Excessive worry and negative thoughts are leaving you stressed and anxious. Potential insomnia or nightmares as your constant negative thoughts prevent you from resting. Yeah, I really like that this book asks you, pairs with the Nine of Swords, to reach out to someone else, to lean on others. Resonum says, I very much want to get into tarot cards, but not quite sure where to start. But it's so fun listening to you talk about them. Well, first of all, thank you. That's very sweet. That makes me feel good that Tarot Tuesday is fun to listen to, even for folks who aren't like very deeply into tarot. But I mean, if you want to start, I actually really, really love this book, Intuitive Tarot, by Bridget Esselmont, which TK got me as a gift. This has been, I've like wanted to memorize meanings, or rather be able to do a reading without referencing my book. It's totally okay if you reference your book, but it's been a personal goal of mine to be able to just read from the symbols on my card. And I've tried going through and like doing daily draws and memorizing meanings, and it's never worked. And I can feel my understanding of tarot growing like every day, every time I work on this book. So super recommend it. But even if you just get a tarot deck and you just want to do a daily draw and then read in your book what that means and then kind of sit and reflect on what that means to you, that's a great place to like dip your toe as well. Does anyone in chat have recommendations for how to get started with tarot? I'm gonna take a little sippy sip while the chat catches up. Metamommy says, honestly, I just chose a deck that felt really, really resonated with me. That's always fun too. And that's actually the first steps of Intuitive Tarot. You get to search for a deck that speaks to you, either from the artwork or the symbolism or any combination. Jules Verne says, I watch a lot of YouTube videos of people talking through cards and spreads they've done. Metamommy says, The Wild Unknown was my first deck because the art just really caught me and I couldn't get it out of my brain. Ooh, The Wild Unknown also has this really nice tarot cloth that has little spots for you to place cards that go along with different spreads they've written, and I love that one. Hannah, I'm sorry that Moobot is being a jerk and yelling at you for posting a link. The deck I got also came with a really nice book with cards, descriptions, and meanings. Yeah, I really like larger books that come with tarot decks, because some that come with like the true little white book will just have keywords about what the cards mean. But this one has stories about the artist's life and why those images spoke to them, and breaks down the different symbols that they included. Like on this one, it would be centipede, poppies, swords, and tells you keywords associated with those symbols in particular. Hannah, if you're having trouble posting a link, feel free to DM it to me and I can post it for you. I just started watching Lysa and Friday Teas talk about tarot, and that's how I got into it. Oh yeah, another great way to start is Tarot Tuesdays. All right. Here's another card. Our next one is the Ten of Swords. Here's another reason people are scared of swords. Mine has a fox. It's been stabbed. Just a lot. So much. One sword has fallen on the ground. But yeah, dead fox. And this is usually, my cards come with like a little bit of hopeful imagery, but I'm not really feeling it from this one. The Ten of Swords, that's like the culmination of the suit. Ten of Swords is actually your favorite card in the deck. Can you tell us what it looks like and why that is, Jules Verne? So for me, I just wrote like straight up pain, loss. This is an ending. Usually this card represents like a really abrupt ending that kind of surprises you. To me, it says that things are as bad as they could be. It really sucks, but you're still here and things can only improve. That is the most optimistic way. Critting Grig. I was just thinking, what is Trevor going to say with that optimism? But that image is a little harder to be optimistic with. Very true. I just have one deck, a Linda Ravencroft Fairy deck, but I am getting the re-release of Forager's Daughter and the ASL deck. Ooh, I'm really glad you're getting Forager's Daughter. I love this deck so much. The imagery really speaks to me, and it's been helping me learn a lot. I don't like the Divine Tarot Ten of Swords much, but the Modern Witch deck has a girl who's also stabbed, but she's alive, awake, and looking at her phone, and to me, it's like she's starting to reach out to people. Oh, wow. So, for the Modern Witch deck, that is actually one of the, what would the word be, most known cards from that deck, because they also have that image, and instead of Ten of Swords along the bottom, it's just like everything is fine when you kind of mean it sarcastically. But you could read it not sarcastically and be like, you know what? It's fine. It's not good, but it is going to be okay. I really like that interpretation, Jules. Upright, stabbed in the back, reversed. It's like that physics thing where you lay on a bed of nails and your weight is spread out across the more nails there are. You know what? Yeah, I'm glad there's 10 swords. Let's see, what question does the Ten of Swords ask? The Ten of Swords asks, what wisdom can you gain from this hurt and defeat? Swords are so much about moving forward. Swords are like, yeah, this happened, but what can we learn? Okay, what's next? Swords really are like super no nonsense that way. I'm going to wait a moment in case anyone else wants to share their Ten of Swords with us. Oh, Chrysikon, thank you for the hydrate. Okay. Let's move along to our Page of Swords. My page, the first of our court cards, is a little cricket. A little cricket with a sword. And just thinking about the sort of like page energy that there is, and how noisy crickets are. The Suit of Swords is very much about intellect and information. So I feel like the Page of Swords is probably like really spunky and clever. And I feel like they talk a lot. They're good communicators. Oh, Dusty says their 10 of arrows is instruction. I like this because it feels like mastery of knowledge. I do like that. Did I say Sword of Page energy? I meant Page of Swords energy? I don't know. I might have misspoken. What else did I write? I wrote cautious, but I think that must be from reading the book. So let me consult the little white book. Because I'm curious about... I was curious about the plant, and I couldn't remember what it was. Dusty, you're going to like this. That plant is a nettle. Which is a plant that has like lots of like tiny little spikies on it, and you have to be careful when you forage it. So that speaks to that the page is also shrewdly cautious. Stinging nettle, caution, think before acting. Clever, quick-witted, defensive, caution are the keywords. Oh, instead of sort of, Chrysikon. How dare you? However, I will sit up straighter. Thank you, Ska Punk Elf, for the posture check. Sharing and gaining knowledge. Reversed. No, it's not the anxiety. Stop talking. Secretly grander. That's funny. Yeah, it seems like communication is very much a Page of Swords quality. They're just chatty and they want to share this like newfound knowledge. Grinning Grig appreciates Krizikon's humor. Next up, we have the Knight of Swords. So all of the swords have a sort of swiftness to them. The page is perhaps the most cautious. But here we have a hawk or some sort of bird of prey swooping down. And it looks to me like they're trying to like catch this sword. So to me, this is about swift action, decisive action. I feel like the Knight of Swords is we talked about swords being brutally honest. I feel like Knight of Swords is that. I wrote honest, ambitious, assertive, and swift. So what do the moon phases mean here? So the page always has a sort of like youthful energy, and it has like a small crescent moon. It's sort of the beginning of the cycle. And as you go through, the king always ends at the full moon, and he's always sort of the master of what that suit means. So it speaks to that. I'm forgetting what these brambles are. Ooh, actually, wait. The Page of Swords asks, what new forms of expression are available to you? And the Knight of Swords asks, what energizes you to take action? But I forget what these plants are. I'm curious about that. They are black locust thorns, assertive and direct. The black locust tree hosts beautiful white cascading flowers in early summer, but it also grows clusters of long, sharp spines. They grow in the lower portion of the tree, primarily on young bark, and disappear as the bark matures. The Knight of Swords may not be inherently harsh, but he makes sure to let others know exactly what his intentions are, and that honesty can sometimes be brutal, is what that speaks to. All right, we have the Queen of Swords. So here we have a beautiful spider who has caught a moth in her web. So this is a little bit of upcoming chapter knowledge, but each of the court cards is also associated with an element. So the Queen of Swords is sort of the water of this air suit. So she also, I think, is like very swift, but the knight gets his swiftness from wanting to take action quickly, swiftly, being very assertive in that way. And the Queen of Swords, this spider, she has carefully laid out her web and is just sitting and perceiving, waiting for vibrations in the web to alert her that a bug is there. And so she is extremely keenly perceptive. I wrote sharp, perceptive, intuitive, and swift. Oh my god, Hannah, you got like super banned? I didn't realize that. Welcome back. I'm sorry you got banned. Moobot was being such a bully. The Queen has big mom energy to me. Like, she's just chilling, living her life peacefully, but she's ready to jump in and fight if she needs to defend someone. Oh yeah, that totally is the vibe of this queen. Like, all the queens have a little bit of like different types of mom energy. This queen will like cut you if you mess with anyone in her life. Upright. Guys, follow me. I got this. Reversed. Oh no, I don't got this. Queen of Swords has always felt like this kind of perceptive and control that comes from surviving harsher things. Oh, I really like that interpretation. Because honestly, that speaks so much to this suit. This suit is so much about experiencing hardships, but moving forward despite that, like learning your lessons. So I really feel like this captures that. Ooh, wisdom is a great word. Wisdom, yes. Which brings us to the King of Swords. Mine has an owl standing atop a sword that is plunged into an amethyst, and there is so much ivy growing out of control behind this king. Oh, Chrysikon, dancing on the edge, playing with fire. My king is a griffin. Oh, that's cool. So to me, owls are like the epitome of wisdom symbology. In so many cultures, they stand for wisdom. So this king is like has mastery over knowledge and intellect. I feel like he's probably like super duper like rational and logical. He's also perched atop of this sword up high. So he can see ahead. He has this really keen foresight. King of Swords is another hottie. This guy gives dad vibes, but King Leonidas style from 300, Gerald Butler. That image is so Sword in the Stone. Yes. We stand all of these kings and their boss dadness. A story. So I was like, why is there ivy on here? Well, ivy grows like really out of control and you can't stop it. And that seems really strange to me to put on the King of Swords card. So in the Little Black Book, the King of Swords, the ivy does represent like chaos around you, the sort of harsh circumstances, but the right person wielding this knowledge, this intellect, this sword can kind of cut through those challenges so that you can move forward through the brambles. Oh, thank you for following. Oh, another follow. Thank you. Oh, I think I forgot again the question. So, the Queen of Swords asks us, how can you gain the information you need to make the best decisions? She represents intellectual maturity and mental clarity, allowing for unbiased judgments. Oh, it is a truth seeker. The King of Swords asks, how can you remain impartial in making important decisions? In standing firm in your truth and expressing yourself with authority and intellectual power, an impartial professional advisor and guide. Yeah. So that is our suit of swords. How is everyone feeling about this suit? I know, I guess it feels like honestly most people in chat were like, yeah, we love swords, Lysa. Well, I'm scared of swords, okay? And I do feel going through and spending some time with the swords and thinking about how they're like warnings or encouragement to empower you or encouragement that you can learn and move forward. I don't know if the swords would feel like that's what they are. The swords would be like, we're just being honest. But choosing to look at them in that way, like that best friend willing to tell you how it is. I do feel like I can embrace swords a little better. The swords are my faves for introspection. I heart them. I've always felt that swords were a bit judgy, but I'm seeing more in them after this, so thank you. Yeah, I feel that way too, so thank you everyone for going through that exercise with me. I mean, sharp pointy things are still sharp pointing things. I got back just in time for Sword Daddy. That was incredibly enlightening. All right. So, I have to go get ready for my other stream at 7, but I have a few minutes. So for Tarot Tuesdays, I really like to end each session with our doing some sort of exercise together. In the past, we've done power questions. We will probably do power questions again. But today, I really wanted to read a guided meditation for folks. And this is from a book called A Witch Alone. Focus? It will not focus. It focused. Okay. It's A Witch Alone, the essential guide for the solo practitioner of the magical arts. And I loved the first chapter of this, which talked about what magic is to Marion Green, the author, and talking about connections to folklore and a time in our past when folks were, pretty much everyone was in agriculture, and so there was this real connection to the earth and the passing seasons and the wheel of the year. But I might have a new favorite chapter, and that is chapter 5, The Journey to the Otherworld, which for my RPG friends, it mentions Dungeons and Dragons. There's like a whole half paragraph about Dungeons and Dragons. But it talks about, it's called A Witch Alone, Secretly Grander. It talks about how when you're performing your craft, you need to get into a sort of magical state of mind. And that state of mind is something that when folks were working in the fields all day, in the past, when everyone was in agriculture, like I mentioned, a lot of their work would be like really repetitive. And so you sort of space out and your mind wanders. And that was sort of just like what daily life was like for them. These days we have so many distractions and things we can be focused on, or to distract us. But that feeling that when you're reading like a really good book and your body like totally relaxes because it's just all your energy goes to your brain and you can like visualize the scenes in the book. And before you know it, the whole day has passed but you finished the book you were reading. That is a magical frame of mind. And then she also talks about how Dungeons and Dragons is very similar in that when you're in a really good RPG session and you're role-playing, you kind of totally embody that character. And those bonds and friendships that you're forming at the table, that sense of accomplishment, of victory, if someone saves your character from the brink of death, those bonds and emotions and everything, they might have been imaginary, but they are also very much real. Like, the situations might have been make-believe, but the feelings and what you've created feel very, very real. It's the same as when you're, like, really into a good movie, and you, like, start crying or, like, laughing. You feel those emotions in a very real way. Yes, that imaginative flow is the best state of mind. Oh no, that sounds like me driving. I might not be the safest driver. Oh my goodness. Okay. So, to help, like, sort of train you to go into this state of mind, Marion Green has written out sort of a guided meditation, which I'd really love to read to everybody. It's just 5 minutes. And sort of you can close your eyes if you wish to, but just sort of visualize things as I read them. And I'd love to spend a minute or two after just hearing how everyone felt about this guided meditation. So, get comfy. I wouldn't lie down. I tend to fall asleep if I'm lying down and doing a guided meditation. Sit upright, but be comfortable. Close your eyes. Get a little sip of water before you do so. And we're gonna go on a small adventure together. First, see a soft brown cloak of natural wool being wrapped around you. Feel its pleasant texture, its warmth and comfort. This will protect you, making you invisible if you are out of doors, or reduce your awareness of intruding thoughts or disturbances indoors. Become really aware of it before you go to the next image. Now, still enclosed in the cloak of protection, rise to your feet and see that you are standing on a narrow path through a field of wildflowers. It is a pleasant sunny day with a light breeze touching your cheek. You may smell the scent of hay, the many flowers, and feel the wild wind blowing freely. You may hear the drowsy buzz of bumblebees, the chirrup of crickets, the hum of insects among the flowers, and the shush of the wind among the grasses. Otherwise, it is very quiet. You begin to walk along the path, seeing it wind along a hillside toward a small cluster of trees. You feel very peaceful as you stroll in the sunshine. Soon you draw near to the grove of trees, all deep green in the full leaf of summer. Perhaps you recognize young oaks, small ash trees, the darker green of holly, the feathery-edged leaves of hawthorn with clusters of green haws among them. You enter the cooler shade and begin to hear the chirping of birds and the rustle of the light breeze in the branches. In the dimmer light, you pause. After a few moments, something brighter catches your eye, and you walk on, winding among the trunks of the trees. You see the lush grasses beside the path dotted with white and mauve flowers. You begin to sense other presences, perhaps only birds or small animals, or perhaps those watching spirits which are found everywhere under nature's care. Carefully you make your way forward, for the trees crowd closer here, and the path has petered out amid the loamy brown leaf mold that carpets the wood. You look around you, not sure which way to go. You turn around, seeking the path, but it has vanished. The leafy branches seem to brush your hair, and the trunks of the trees feel as if they are closing in. The dim green twilight darkens, and you begin to feel lost and alone. Before you, there seems to be an arching doorway of slender rowan trees leaning in toward each other, and beyond them a lighter glade seems to offer a safer path. You push your way through the low branches, here and there, scented with the peppery aroma from the clustering white rowan flowers. It feels as if a door toward the light is opening for you as you pass between the smooth, slender gray-green trunks. Ahead, there is a fallen tree, entwined with ivy and creepers, but part of the bole is clear, and gratefully you sink down to sit and rest a while. The light which seemed to fade under the trees now begins to brighten, and every leaf glistens and shimmers with dazzling points of sunlight. The birds all sing in tuneless chorus. Around you the wind seems to rustle the branches, and small whirlwinds raise twists of dust. As you sense all of these things at once, another great presence looms near to you, and a bell-like voice speaks from behind you. "Welcome, my child. Why have you come through the door in the heart of the greenwood?" You try to turn to see who is there, but your body is reluctant, and all you see is a greenish shadow out of the corner of your eye. Somehow you manage to speak and answer. New questions follow, and you receive answers for what may seem a long time. Eventually, there is silence. The light dims, the birdsong dies, and the trees are still. You look around and may just catch the departing swirl of a green cloak, vanishing between the tree trunks. A tall form moving swiftly into the leafy gloom. For a few moments you ponder on what has been said, and then slowly rise to your feet. Looking between the arching rowans, you see the path, now quite clear and straight. You make your way along it. The trees that seem to press closely now lightly touch your hair, conferring a blessing. The scent of greenery, wildflowers, and soft loam fills your nostrils, and you breathe deep of this free, fresh air. Soon you leave the wood, seeing how tiny it appears, how safe and familiar the trees. You cross the flowering meadow, again being acutely aware of the colors of the flowers, the touch of the grasses, the twitter of rising skylarks, and the low murmur of bees. As you look about you, the scene grows misty and dim. You feel very happy and relaxed, but those images, feelings, and experiences linger with you. Soon you are ready to open your eyes and return gently yet completely to your own familiar world. Return and remember. when you're ready, you can open your eyes and rejoin us. Thank you for the posture check, Hannah. When I am lying in bed at night and having trouble sleeping, I really like to do visualizations like this of kind of walking into a forest, or there's a misty mountaintop in my last visit to China. I think in my last visit to China that I really like to visualize. That was lovely. I mean, first of all, that was a really great piece of writing, Marianne. So thank you for that. But that's just a really nice guided meditation to just take you down a wooded path. And her goal with that is to have folks record themselves saying it, or just remember the words and work on visualizing that little walk into this clearing over and over. Not over and over all at one time, but different days, until you can almost reach out and pick those colorful flowers, or brush aside the ivy on that fallen log. And it's just a way to meditate, practice mindfulness, and hone getting into that magical, imaginative state. Anyway, I hope you all enjoyed that. It was lovely to read, at least, so lovely little treat for me. A reminder to folks that tomorrow at 5 Pacific time, I will be arranging some of these dried hydrangeas that I foraged from my mother-in-law's yard. I also have some yarrow of hers that I've dried, and we're going to make a lovely little dense and textured dried floral arrangement. That will be happening tomorrow at 5 p.m. Pacific time. Usually I like to raid her show, but I believe at 7 o'clock Pacific time, Friday at Friday Afternoon Tea here on Twitch, I'll be doing tea and tarot if you'd like to continue the tarot discussions. Also at 7 o'clock Pacific time, so just in about 20 minutes and change, I will be playing a game called Obachan Panic, where I play a grandma with superpowers on the Twitch channel VV Spaceship. I wish I could throw you all over to VV Spaceship today, but if you stick around on the end screen, we will go give a raid to our friends over at Salty Sweet Games, who are playing some tabletop RPGs. So stick around, get your Jarmathy emotes ready, and hopefully we can make their day. I think I now sort of understand the point of the sword now. I suppose my previous knowledge just didn't cut it. Oh, Krizikon. Oh, Krizikon. On that note, goodbye, everybody.